Today's show is brought to you by Mack Weldon, makers of high-quality, highly comfortable men's clothing. They've got you covered with men's basics like shirts, underwear, and socks, but they've also got loungewear and lots of other high-quality items if you're looking to live that relaxed, casual sort of lifestyle. Second best of all is their antimicrobial silver line, which, if you're in the front office of a European club, should help you from stinking things up in the January window. Best of all is that our listeners can get 20% off using the promo code TSS at checkout. So just go to mackweldon.com, that's MackWeldon.com, use the promo code TSS, and get 20% off today. Now, on with the program.
Hello and welcome to Monday's Total Soccer Show, recording on MLK Day. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who I feel there's a great distance opened up between us. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Physically, but not emotionally. Physically, but not emotionally.
Geographically, more than anything.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you are still in Richmond.
I am.
I am down here in sunny St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yeah, I'm assuming pretty much the exact same temperature in St. Petersburg as it is in Richmond, in the sense that even though you said it's sunny, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it's overcast and about 40 degrees.
It's more like 70.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Can you guess how far away it is? I Google mapped it just before we started recording. It's pop quiz, Taylor.
700,000 miles. No, 450 miles.
Way off. It's about 850.
You never know these things. Who knows the size of anything?
Before we talk Premier League, can you guess how long Google Maps says it would take me to walk home from here?
Wow. A month and a half?
11 days.
I'm busy being annoyed with myself because I've just remembered that Virginia Beach is like 120 miles away from Richmond. So, yeah, I probably should have guessed more than 400. Have you become enamored of Florida yet, or are you still wary of Florida man?
I kind of have. I don't think Florida man's in St. Petersburg. It's kind of a cool town. I like it. I like the soccer stadium as well. I went and took a look at the Tampa Bay Rowdies Stadium. It opens up. There's one open side that looks out onto the bay. It's kind of beautiful.
So this is opposition scouting for the upcoming USL season, basically?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, that works. Good job by
you. Today we're going to talk about soccer that happened, I want to say 3,000 miles away. Taylor would put it more like 1,000 miles away in the middle of the ocean.
Like 20 miles.
It's the English Premier League. There was sort of a double dip of Liverpool-Manchester derbies. Well, not derbies, but Liverpool-Manchester games this weekend.
It's slightly strange, right?
Yeah, very strange. We're going to talk Everton's 4-0 win over Manchester City and a little bit about Manchester United's 1-1 draw with Liverpool.
Alrighty. Based on that introduction, I'm going to say we're starting with the Everton win then.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it chronologically first on Sunday, it was also the most shocking result, right? Like 1-1 in a Liverpool-Man United derby, I feel like is never shocking. That's kind of what you'd guess if you were just wanting to like get your money back on a bet, right?
Yeah.
But Everton 4, Man City 0 is not something you would put money on. If you did, you'd be pretty wealthy right now.
That said, it is. I read the first time that the Man United Liverpool derby has finished like on a double draw since they drew earlier in the season and then now have drawn this weekend. It's the first time that's happened in the Premier League era. So it is a little bit of a rarity.
That's interesting.
But still, yeah, this is the far more surprising result. And it was interesting because I was on a group text with like a Man United fan, a Liverpool fan, a Man City fan, a couple other people. And the Man United fan was ribbing our friend John Tolbert about being a City fan and about how they were getting like destroyed. And it was only 2-0 or 3-0 at that point, which to me isn't being destroyed. But then when you watch this game, you do kind of get an idea of why you would use that adjective to describe this game.
Well, shall we talk about what went wrong for Manchester City? I mean, I think we don't want to be that show that only talks about Pep Guardiola's face and what went wrong for Man City. I think we'll talk about what Everton did right later on. But obviously the big story is that it's 4-0. It's Guardiola's worst ever league defeat in Germany, Spain or England, right? So this is a big deal. So I guess top of your head, Taylor, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What went wrong for Pep and for Manchester City?
I think the thing that stands out from this game more than teenagers scoring goals was just how like quickly Everton went at City and how it really could have been a lot more in this game. If Lukaku's a bit more efficient in front of goal, if they take the chances, it could have been 6 or 7, really. I
thought they only had 4 shots on target and about 5 shots on goal.
That's my point. But there's one from Lukaku earlier on that he kind of scuffs and goes wide. There's a couple couple other opportunities when maybe Lukaku is trying to shoot and does that kind of like the pump fake, and then gets the ball tipped away. And if he looks for Morales earlier, then that's a goal. So
I didn't think we'd be opening this show questioning Everton's efficiency.
Well,
given they put 4 past Man City.
No, but my point more so is that it seemed like they were on Manchester City quickly and often, and to the point where it really could have been worse. And I think that's what stands out in my head is that it seemed like as soon as Everton were getting the ball back, after forcing City consistently into bad passes, they would go right back at that defense as quickly as possible. And it made me think that maybe Koeman identified the kind of flux, the lineup changes, the formation changes, the fact that some players are missing, that some players are injured, and thought, I bet if we go at these guys and put them on their heels, it's going to be difficult for them to kind of deal with that. And it seems like that was the case.
It seemed a little bit, Leicester City-ish to me, and that it was just win the ball back and then quick transition to get it forward.
Absolutely.
And I actually think Lukaku did a really good job of every time Everton won the ball back through Gareth Barry or Tom Davies or whomever it was, Lukaku would either come short and show, or he would turn and run in the channels and really always be a target for guys just looking to knock it either to his feet or in behind for him to chase.
Yeah, and that was, that was another key aspect of this game, I would say, is, those first 2 goals come about because of some really smart running, both times from Morales in terms of being able to stay on side and kind of timing that run, but Lukaku kind of doing that slow up as you do, like as big center forwards do, to create that separation, to get that space in the box, to get that first goal. So it seemed like it was very direct attack for Everton, but also very intelligent timing and running within that direct attack.
Okay, you flipped my promise because I wanted to talk about Everton second, but we've ended up talking about them, right? Everton would not have been able to do these things if Man City hadn't sort of had many problems of their own. And that's really where I want to start. Sure. To me, like just looking at the lineup, I look at the makeup of the midfield. It's Yaya Toure as holding midfielder. It's Zabaleta and Kevin De Bruyne as the central midfielders. And then David Silva at the tip of a diamond, essentially, right? That is not what I would normally expect from a Man City midfield.
Oh, no? Really? And I think a big part of that is obviously you've got Fernando and Gundogan missing. So then you've got to kind of try to figure things out if you're Pep Guardiola. And Fernandinho
suspended, which I think is the guy who maybe is most important in all this.
Yeah, that doesn't help. And so it makes me... This is the one that I do buy into with the kind of prevailing narrative that maybe Pep thought he was very good at getting players to play a certain way, and he would be able to do that with these City players. And maybe, just maybe, he overestimated his ability just a little bit. Because I think that's where you get the idea of Pablo Zabaleta as like a defensive midfielder or sometimes an attacking midfielder. Like that's just not something that I think most people would do. And I can understand maybe wanting to try it in training, maybe wanting to try it in a game. But against Everton, I think it was maybe not the smartest of decisions.
I would absolutely agree with that. And you look at the bench as well. They don't have I think they had Fabian Delph was on the bench, who's a guy. I really like him as a kind of aggressive, combative midfielder. I'm maybe a little biased because he's English. To me, he seems a more obvious choice to play central midfield than Zabaleta. And I also wonder if the formation choice that Pep went with, that like narrow diamond midfield, was maybe a reflection of him thinking. I'd flip it the other way to what you said. I think maybe he thinks, I don't really have much midfield strength. I need numbers in there instead. And he sacrificed any sort of width in order to try and get numbers in the middle, but it still just wasn't quality numbers.
What do you mean? 'Cause, no, I would agree with that completely. Have I misconstrued my point? Because no, I think that's exactly what he was trying to do. Was basically like, oh boy, well I'll put Pablo in. He's proven to be a tough tackler, but we know he can pass, so why not? We'll try him in there. We'll get some numbers in there. We'll make them go out wide, and then we'll trust ourselves to kind of win the aerial challenges and be organized. And then he kind of forgot that he has John Stones as a center back.
Well, I'll tell you, if I'm going to point a finger of blame before we talk to John Stones, because I know there's a lot of focus on John Stones because his return to Everton and all that stuff.
And also he played very poorly. I'm going to add that.
Also, he did, yeah. And then especially the fourth goal, right? The fourth goal is the worst John Stones moment of the day because he's going against his instincts, trying to just clear it, and even that fails.
Yep.
Which leads to Lookman's goal. But I would pin the first 2 goals and a little bit of the Tom Davies goal, at least partly, on Mr. Yaya Toure.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. The first one in combination with John Stones, actually. Do you mind if I sort of talk you through the goal and make my case for this? So what I see is... the Clichy ball is picked off by Tom Davies, right? So Davies has it in the Everton half. And then Davies is able to play this ball through in behind in the spot where John Stones was, but John Stones had wandered into midfield, and Yaya Toure was covering. So Toure was like playing emergency centre-back, and he just basically wasn't fast enough to keep up with Morales as Morales got played in behind. Just like, when you play that defensive midfield spot, especially for Pep Guardiola, sometimes you're going to end up at centre-back, right?
Right.
But I think we may have hit a point where Toure is not fast enough to sit in that centre-back spot, even with people like Morales running in behind him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would have been the obvious observation coming into this game, is that Yaya Toure maybe isn't as fast as he used to be.
Yeah.
And probably isn't as, honestly, just as sharp as he used to be. And so to have him trying to fill those holes, and that's what I mean to go all the way back to what I think Everton did intelligently, is that I think you can look at that midfield and think there are opportunities there if we make them uncomfortable. And going at them directly, especially off of like intercepting a cliche, like a 30-yard driven ball on the floor, and then going right back, rather than like a lot of teams I think would set up, pass the ball around, get their center backs like push forward to midfield, then you try to attack. But I think if you do that, then you don't have those kind of gaps where other people are filling in and people who don't know quite what they're supposed to be doing are filling in. And because Everton didn't wait, because they did go aggressive, you have those moments where Yaya Toure maybe isn't doing what he needs to be doing, maybe John Stones is out of position, and maybe you're 1-0 down.
The other guy I want to point a finger at, and it's actually kind of more of a systemic breakdown as well, but with individual errors within it. Otamendi plays everybody on side. He's the one that it makes it okay for Lukaku to eventually get the ball.
Oh man, the most savage burn of the entire game was, I forget who the color commentator was for the game, but at the end when Otamendi did that, he kind of got into it with, I think, Lukaku, and he went down very easily and tried to make it look as though he'd been headbutted. The color commentary said, he looks like a center half, but he certainly doesn't play like one. I thought that was a pretty rough burn. And he said, this guy. He didn't even give him a name. He said, this guy, he looks like a center half, but he certainly doesn't play like one. And
it's Andy Townsend. I think it was former Ireland midfielder Andy Townsend. Yeah.
And it felt like that because, he was slow to step, and it just seemed like kind of slow overall. Again, maybe pointing to a lack of familiarity and a lack of confidence in that defense.
All right, let me tell you what happens in the second goal then, Taylor, right after half-time. Yaya Toure wins the ball. I think he wins it in the air. Dribbles straight into Gareth Barry. Sort of overplays it, thinking he can dribble a little more aggressively than he can. So Toure's dispossessed in midfield. There's a big hole there again. Gareth Barry, I think, plays it to Lukaku. He manages to get his pass redirected by John Stones. It breaks to Ross Barkley. Barkley is able to play Morales through because guess who's dropped too deep?
Is it Otamendi?
It's Otamendi.
There it is.
Yeah, so you've got another Nicolas Otamendi playing everybody on side situation.
And you're right that it's Otamendi playing everybody on side. But I think you can't overstate or understate how clever Morales was in this run. Because it's that half glance across to see, Otamendi's dropped. If I take one step backwards, now I'm completely onside. And that's exactly what he does. And he has that ability to slow down and speed up at the exact same moment. So just in that half-second delay, he's able to get back onside, he being Morales, and is able to then take that goal cleanly. And it's a really well-taken goal across the box to the side, to the far corner. It's well taken.
Do you know what he reminded me of? When Morales is making sure he's onside, basically taking advantage of Otamendi's mistake, I would say. He reminded me of, using my American football knowledge, which is not great, but the way that wide receivers can sometimes catch the ball at pace, but then drag their feet backwards a little bit and just make sure that they stay in bounds.
You did not watch the playoffs last night, did you?
I never watched the playoffs.
That's pretty much how the Packers won their game against the Cowboys.
Oh, there we go.
So
it's that thing of having forward momentum, but also making sure to hold yourself back just enough to stay within bounds and make it happen.
Awareness. If you've ever wondered what that FIFA awareness thing is that when you're creating a player, that's what it is. It's the ability to spot those types of situations and those mismatches and those opportunities.
And I would say that Morales taking that opportunity, that's where the game was kind of dead. Because I didn't see Man City having any other ideas from this point. Well, it was 2-0, you were just Everton are just going to be able to counter-attack more and more as Man City get more and more desperate, which is kind of what happened for the second half, right?
Well, it was the 47th minute, maybe? It was
46, it was
11.
Right after half-time. Yeah.
And I think I agree with you specifically because of that timing. Because coming out of halftime, if you're Man City, you would assume that you've just gotten the hairdryer treatment. You would assume that you've just gotten your new instructions about how we want to play, how we want to change things around to make things more comfortable, to make this game go the way we want it to go. You come back out, restart, and then you concede within a minute and a half. It points to everyone is still confused, no one is confident, and now everything is even more so in a state of flux because you've changed things, but now you have to be more aggressive. And so, I think once that goal goes in, you understand then why Pep Guardiola makes that face, basically.
Yeah. So I was trying to think of a good way to describe this. Do you watch Sherlock?
Yes.
I want to say that after that goal, Guardiola's like staring into space, not even at the game. He's definitely just like thinking about things, right?
Yeah.
I want to say he went into a sad mind palace.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly. He was like I think he was trying to work things out in his head, but he was there so long. It was like if Sherlock did it and came out with nothing. Like Sherlock went in his mind palace, found it was all empty, and just came out and was like, "Sorry, John Watson, I got nothing today."
I'm gonna one up your reference with an even less topical reference, which he like incepted himself, and he was like stuck in his mind for 100 years and came back out. Even though to us it was only seconds, to him it was 100 years of hating the British media and hating his team, basically.
Yeah, actually, I want to pick up on that. Do you remember a few shows back? I talked about how I kind of liked how Guardiola was giving it to the British media, and you disagreed in that you thought it was more that he was kind of losing it and the pressure was getting to him. And I know we had the conversation on the show. We had a longer conversation off air afterwards, right?
Yeah.
I am now way more towards your way of thinking, which is that things are very bad in Pep's head.
Yeah. And I think that's always kind of been who he is. I think he's always been a little bit more emotional and a little bit more inclined to wear his heart on his sleeve. And I think he fights that because that's not the best thing to be as a manager. To be kind of all over the place can lead you into saying things or doing things you don't want to do. And so I think he's fighting that, but I think he is very expressive when angry, and I think you can see that in these last couple of games and these last couple of results, just that it does seem like it's starting to wear on him a little bit. I'm not going to go so far as a lot of other pundits have, which is he's lost it. He doesn't understand the English Premier League. He's not going to get it. He's going to walk away from this. I don't think that any of that is true. I think we're not even a full season into his first year at Manchester City, where he's got to change a lot of parts and work very hard. But I think you are seeing him be very frustrated that the wheels have come off a little bit and that he isn't getting more backing than he is, because it does seem like he's coming under attack from pretty much every direction.
Yeah, I think, okay, let's talk about this. First of all, Everton fans singing "You're getting sacked" in the morning, I think was very tongue-in-cheek, right? Even every Everton fan will know that Man City have waited like a sort of like a dutiful partner.
I was wondering what the simile was going to be. Like
a dutiful partner to be. They have waited and waited for Pep Guardiola, and now they've got who they want, right? They are not going to rip it up after 6 months, right?
No.
The same way Pep Guardiola, being the very competitive man that he is not going to be like, this isn't working, I'm going to walk away. I can't see any other thing happening except Man City and Pep Guardiola getting together and being like, how do we fix this?
Yeah. I mean,
how do they fix it, Taylor?
I mean, signs and players, I think, as crazy as it is to say about a Man City team that has spent a lot of money.
I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, because... No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think things get better when Fernandinho comes back in. I think things would be even better when Gundogan comes back in, because I think both of those guys are really key to the way Pep likes his midfielders to play, as opposed to the way Yaya Toure played today.
Yeah, but I think
there's still centre-backs and full-backs, I feel like, is somewhere where he would prefer having a different setup, right? This is no David Alaba, Philippe Lam, Jerome Boateng situation they have in the back there.
No, it's not. But I recently heard him, or I think like maybe a week or so ago, talk about the importance of Vincent Kompany and talk about the importance of Gundogan, and pointing out, like, I think in this game specifically, that he would have liked to have them, that he had kind of game planned for them to be there. And I think that has led to a lot of frustration on the part of City fans, because like those guys get injured. Gundogan frequently gets injured. Kompany frequently gets injured. Or Gundogan maybe not frequently, but has a history of long injuries. And so if you're putting...
And he's been injured long enough, like in the last few weeks, that you should be planning for this game without him, because he's out for most of the season, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the point being that, like, if you're game planning around guys who do get injuries, you're going to run into problems. And if you don't have capable backups or capable backup plans, that's where frustration grows. And that's where I think he will probably have to maybe not sign anybody in January, because it doesn't seem like that's what he wants to do. It seems like he wants to continue to back himself and get people playing the way he wants them to play and the style he wants them to play. But I think, another holding midfielder, maybe another center back, maybe an outside back, all those would be good. Maybe a goalkeeper. I don't know if he was able to get the goalkeeper he wanted. I can't remember. Just kidding, he did, and that didn't go so well. See the fourth goal. Should we talk about Claudio Bravo in this game? Yeah, the fourth goal goes right between his legs. Sure does.
The first two goals, I don't know. It seemed like he didn't offer up much resistance. No. And I think the four shots on target, 4 goals, speaks very poorly of Claudio Bravo. And I know it's kind of unfair to judge a goalkeeper on the goals he concedes in a way, because then you're judging him in a situation where he's failed, right? But it did look way too easy for Lukaku and Morales on those first 2 goals.
They get worse, basically. Each goal gets progressively worse from them. The first one, I would say, it's Lukaku, as I said, pretty wide open at the penalty spot, with Claudio Bravo having to slide across because he's covering the near post in case Morales shoots, then he has to run across. So basically, Lukaku does a very good job of disguising his shot, so it looks like he's going to put it to the far post, and then he puts it to the near post, which is where Bravo was running away from. So, like, it's always going to be really tough to save that. That one I don't fault him for. Second goal, as I said, it's an amazing shot. Morales is kept on side, but it's from a tight angle. I mean, he basically, if he hits it 1 inch to the left, it goes wide, and if he hits it 1 inch to the right, it's probably saved. So it's a perfect shot. But I would say if Bravo gets down a little bit sooner, maybe cuts off that angle a little bit better, then it's not a goal. That said, it's still a tough shot, so maybe it's not so bad. Then the third goal, where he gets chipped from an incredibly tight angle. Then an amazing goal, but still. And then the fourth goal, where he gets megged from an incredibly tight angle. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and it does kind of make you wonder, would Joe Hart have made those stops? And I think he would have. Now, what he wouldn't have been able to do, in Claudio Bravo's defense, is there were multiple times when he got the ball under pressure, like on his goal line. Like, if he mistouches it, it rolls into the goal, and very cleverly plays a sharp pass 40 yards out wide and kind of redistributes the ball very well, which is something he's very good at, but I don't know if that makes up for 2 to 4 goals that could have been better.
I have a mini analysis of Bravo's goalkeeping technique, if you're willing to hear me out.
I'm willing to hear you. You have heard me talk endlessly about David De Gea's technique. So, yes, let's talk about a different goalkeeper's technique, please.
So, a different Manchester goalkeeper's technique. Yeah. So, on the fourth goal, it's kind of a surprise on the first viewing that Lookman puts the ball between Bravo's legs, right? If you watch it again, his stance when he's facing a shot, very wide, right? Bravo's stance when he's facing a shot, very wide.
Did you just act it out?
I did. Is that where you heard the mic knocked, right? Yeah, my foot hit the table. But if you look again at the first and second goals, as he's preparing to face a shot, his stance is very wide, wider than most goalkeepers. He has his legs kind of open. So if you think about just the mechanics of how you stand and how you dive, the wider your stance, I feel like the harder it is to get momentum to like dive to the left or to the right. Yeah. And to me, that may be the reason why his dives, like his lateral dives, look kind of weak and slow. Like both those 2 goals, essentially the ball goes past him and then he dives, right? You see him diving after the ball's gone. Yeah. And I wonder if it's like a stance technique thing. And I'm no expert on goalkeeping technique or what the proper stance should be. I'd be interested to hear from maybe someone who knows more than I do. But that's my initial read. That now I'm sort of worried that I put this out on the show without knowing what I'm talking about. But that's my initial read, is that maybe his stance is too wide and it makes it harder for him to get down quickly.
That could be. My only other thought on that would be that maybe it's poor timing on his part, that he comes out too quickly but then stops, because I could envision a situation in which if you're trying to come out to cut down an angle and you come out but then you've misjudged it, so now you're just kind of standing there. I could see how you would do that, sort of like, okay, I'm set and ready, and that would then lead to spreading your legs open a little bit to try to be as wide as possible, make yourself look big, but then you leave yourself open to getting 5 hold, and that's exactly what happens.
Should we switch to Everton then and talk a bit more about what Everton did right? And I think we'll include the Tom Davies goal.
Yeah, I was going to say started Tom Davies. Yeah,
that's definitely a thing that Everton did right.
Yeah.
Before we talk about his goal, can we talk about how Tom Davies fit into this overall game plan? Because I have a theory of how Everton set up for this game.
Well, you've got a theory. Talk us through it.
Okay. So if you look at what Everton did, they said they went 3 at the back. It was very often 5 at the back, right? When they were defending Man City coming forward, it was 3 centre-backs. It was Coleman and Baines, full-backs, were mostly in with the back line. And then in front of them, you had essentially a flat midfield 3 of Davies, Barry, and Barkley, right? So, and then those 3 guys wouldn't necessarily man-mark any Man City players as they were moving the ball around. They would just sort of move as a unit, like shuffle to the left, shuffle to the right, like just provide a 3-man screen so that nothing can really get through that middle, right? But if Man City went wide, then this like screen would, it's almost like, you know how you can like rotate solar panels, you can adjust the angle so that they deliberately catch the most sun.
Sure.
It's as if...
God, you've gone full Florida on us.
It's as if the Everton defense had these 3 guys in front of them and they just moved them left and right and kept them as a shield in front of them the whole time. Made it really hard for Man City to find any way through, especially with the lack of width that they had in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that you've more or less summed up exactly what I saw in this game, which is
Hey.
Ronald Koeman getting it smart and clogging that midfield. Again, I do think it is based on City's lack of familiarity with each other and the kind of change that they've been going through. But I think it's an Everton team that we're clearly gelling, and I think it's a system that is not simple, but is direct enough that a player like Morgan Schneiderlin, who hasn't really had any training, can come in and play a decent chunk of the second half and function pretty well and do his job pretty well. So
it makes you think how great that sort of defensive system can be when they have Schneiderlin in there, when Gay comes back from the African Cup of Nations. That can really be strengthened.
But yeah, absolutely. But it also, for me, points to one of the maybe consistent, and I don't want to go back to City, I just want to say that it points to one of the consistent criticisms of Guardiola, which is that he tinkers and changes and does kind of crazy things at random moments. And that can work at times, certainly, but then you see games like this where Koeman's team, they know what they're supposed to do. They know the game plan, they've been briefed on it, they've been drilled, they're ready to go, and you see what happens when everybody knows what their plan is, what their role is. It means it's a 4-0 win.
It also helps if you have a bit of magic from an 18-year-old.
Yep.
So let's talk about that Tom Davies goal.
Let's do it by first mentioning that we got a scouting report about Tom Davies. He's scouted by Brett Walker. Brett sent us a gift-tastic email. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Daryl, but there were 2 different gifts in it.
There's one of the gifts I do not understand what it is or why it's in there, but okay.
It is, I believe, a Transformer... not intentionally in the cartoon, but getting an erection is basically what it looks like. And then the second one was Lando Calrissian screaming happily. And he said Davies started against Manchester City since regular starter Gay, pronounced Gay. I mispronounced it last time because I tried to pronounce every single vowel.
I mispronounced it 30 seconds ago.
There we go. Well, no, I think yours was closer. I'm sure that's probably more what it is. But for simplicity's sake, thank you, Brett. He has joined Senegal for the African Cup of Nations. Davies was stellar and had a beautifully weighted pass for the MLS assist on Everton's first goal. Yes, he did. There's
no MLS assists in the Premier League.
No, but I think it's true that was a beautiful pass that deserved an assist because he split like 3-4 defenders for that one.
Yeah, I'm teasing. I'm on Brett's side here. Yeah.
And then he went on to score his first goal for Everton ever, I believe, in what may be one of the goals of the season. So things are looking bright is basically the best way to put it, says Brett.
Okay, can we talk about this goal?
Sure.
First of all, I want to say it starts with a great tackle from Mason Holgate, and I think Raheem Sterling.
Yep, and while we're there, Ben Tondera sends in a scouting report about Mason Holgate. We'll just get that one out of the way.
This is an epic game for the TSS Scouting Network.
Indeed. Holgate started against Man City as part of a 3-man back line, the one you discussed, Holgate, Ashley Williams, and Funes Mori. He held his own for the most part, though he did concede a dangerous free kick and earned a yellow for a tough tackle on Raheem Sterling. Ben adds that it seems that the back three might be the defensive formation for the future of Everton, and that Holgate looks to be a part of it, with Phil Jagielka having lost out.
Interesting. There's a trend, right, of like old school English centre backs like John Terry, Phil Jagielka being squeezed out of these back threes. I've got to say, I watched Holgate in this game. He looked very comfortable on the ball.
He looked very comfortable on and off the ball because there were a few different scuffles. There's the one late when, is it Sterling? Yeah, it's like Sterling who accidentally, intentionally kind of steps on Davies as they both fall down, and Davies gets into it a little bit, and Holgate kind of comes in as though he's the sage head, which I guess he is when compared to Tom Davies, since he's 2 years older than him, and sort of like separates them, but then gives Raheem Sterling a little shove, and then is like, come on, ref, like talk to the official at the same time. So he does like 3 kind of veteran moves in one moment, and it made me like Mason Holgate all the more.
I also thought, I think when Lukaku scores the first goal, Holgate is one of the first people over there, correct, I think. And he kind of like rubs Lukaku on the head.
Yeah.
And that kind of surprised me because obviously Lukaku is a very senior, expensive figure at Everton. Well, I know he's youngish, but he's a very senior figure in that Everton team. I think of Holgate as someone who's, just easing his way into the team. He's 20 years old, he's a young man, but he's obviously comfortable enough with all these guys that he can just rub Lukaku on the head.
I have to say, speaking of that yes, he is very comfortable. Everton, I love watching celebrations. Everton celebrate like the weirdest way I've ever seen, in that they have such varied celebrations. For the first goal, like half the team went and celebrated with Morales. For the second goal, like half the team went and celebrated with Ross Barkley, who provided the assist to Morelos, and then and then everybody went and celebrated with Davies, even though Lukaku was kind of trying to claim the goal still, I believe. And then for the fourth goal, the entire team celebrated because it was another debutant getting a goal, but still, or maybe not debutant, but it was scoring his first goal for the club. But it was just a weird, like they all kind of do their own thing, and Lukaku stood there by himself after the first goal for like 15 seconds before anybody came close to him, and the person that did come close was a center back. Like it points to maybe, I don't know, that they're all just kind of doing their own thing at Everton, except when it comes to executing game plans.
Yeah, well, so whatever they're doing, it absolutely works.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I feel like we've delayed gratification on people wanting to hear about this Tom Davies goal.
All right, now let's get to it, yes.
30 minutes of the show now, because this is the headline for most people,
right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so Holgate makes that tackle on Sterling. Davies picks the ball up, and off he goes, right? He just accelerates with those like suspiciously small shin guards he's got. He accelerates up the field. As he goes wide, I can't remember who it is that comes over to him. Is it Torre and Clichy, maybe? And he does what I can only describe as the Cristiano Ronaldo turn.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
How would you describe this?
It's basically you kind of jump over the ball and then cut it back with the inside of your right foot. So it goes across. It's a
little bit Cruyffish, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit.
Cruyffiano Ronaldo, that's what I want to call it.
Yeah, and he doesn't execute it quite as sharply as Cristiano Ronaldo does, but it has the same effect, which is that he gets away from two defenders. And you see everybody in the crowd. When you watch the replay of that from both angles, everybody immediately hops up. Like, oh boy, something's happening. Something is happening.
So I want to talk about that move for a second. I think the reason it's so effective when Ronaldo does it and when Tom Davies does it is it really looks like you're going in one direction, right? Like it's kind of to the right and away from goal, like what Davies is doing. But it lets you change direction very quickly, change the direction of the ball very quickly. But you're the only person that knows that's about to happen. So you can literally be a step ahead of the two people who are trying to mark you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what happens in this situation. Davies. I'm not going to take us away from Davies again, I promise. He does get away, and it's a very smart move. Then he gets knocked down, which I think maybe made me think that was the end of his contribution to this attacking play, because he's on his butt, but he hops right back up again.
Just like Chumbawamba.
Yep. Chumbawamba?
Yeah.
Chumbawamba. Get out of here.
Chumbawamba. Yeah. I apologize.
They're the greatest band of all time, lest you forget, according to D from Always Sunny. But yeah, then gets back up, again holds his run, because he is open because all the City players have collapsed centrally. And Davies is just out there, just by himself long enough to get that ball, takes a touch, maybe a little bit too heavy, and then does that little chip over an onrushing Bravo, and it drops in just before Lukaku can get to it and get a stud on it.
I saw a replay where Lukaku definitely does not touch that ball.
Yeah.
And then definitely celebrates it. I don't know if he's celebrating because he's happy for Tom Davies, happy for Everton, happy for everybody at Goodison Park, or if he just thinks he scored a goal.
I think he thinks he scored a goal. I loved, again, to go back to the announcers. So they were celebrating. They weren't celebrating it, but they were like, and it's another goal, and it's a brilliant goal. And then I think maybe the producer says, I think Lukaku might have gotten a touch to it. And so then the lead commentator says that. And then when they watch the reverse angle, they're both just silent. And you can tell that more than anything, they don't want Lukaku to have gotten a touch to this ball. And so there's silence. And then you can hear the silence after, because it does kind of look like he gets a foot to it. And then there's like two Mississippi silence. And then, he didn't get, it's a goal. It's a goal. It goes to the youngster. It goes to the youngster.
I'll say this: Tom Davies' first touch, not great on this goal. He takes it way too wide, to the point where you think he's ruined this chance completely. And then that chip is absolute perfection.
And then I like that Lookman comes in and says, "Oh, you think you can take a bad touch and still score, my friend? Let me show you something." So, what was the most impressive thing about that goal for you, though? The third goal, was it the bit of skill, the dribbling? Because he does take that ball a good 70 yards before he passes it away. Was it the mental fortitude to hop back up and know his position, know where he was in relation to the goal, call for that ball? Or was it the finish? Or, I'll give you the out, was it just all three that made it such a compelling goal?
I think top two for me are the acceleration when he picks up that ball and knows that a counter-attack is on. And then that's joint first with that turn. I mean, that's a really brave turn to do as an 18-year-old against, two very experienced players coming over to try and tackle you. That could easily have gone wrong.
It could have, and it kind of went wrong for one person, I would say, and that person is Morgan Schneiderlin. Because You do. I do like Morgan Schneiderlin, and I do want him to have a good career. I liked him at Manchester United. I was sad it didn't work out, but you do feel for him because it's like, all right, I'm going to go to Everton. Like, there's going to be opportunities for me there. Obviously, the Man United squad, there wasn't much room, but with Everton, obviously there will be. And then you watch this 18-year-old just doing this work, and you have to imagine he was sitting there like, this is not good.
That's okay. There'll just be competition for places in the Everton.
Very true. Very true.
And may the best English teenager win. Should we move on to the other Liverpool-Manchester game of the day?
I suppose we should.
All right. So it finished Liverpool 1. Mm-hmm. So was it at Manchester United or Liverpool? I've forgotten now.
Manchester United. Was that?
It was at Manchester. Mm-hmm. Okay, yes. It was Manchester 1. Manchester United 1. Liverpool 1.
Correct.
Penalty from James Milner after Paul Pogba gives that penalty away with the bizarre handball, which we'll talk about.
I'm sorry. Who scored it?
James Milner.
Thank you.
Scored the penalty for Liverpool. Equaliser from the Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the last 10 minutes or so. Shall we start with that Pogba handball, Taylor?
If we must. Yeah.
How and why and what was he doing?
Okay.
Those are the questions we answer on the Total Soccer Show.
First, if you haven't seen it, essentially it comes from a corner that Man United... Marcus Rojo did well to turn it out for a corner because it was a little bit of chaos there. It was a little John Stones-esque chaos led to this corner. It comes in, and it's Paul Pogba marking Dejan Lovren. Lovren does a very good job to lose Paul Pogba. Pogba tries to make up for it, and it looks like he's basically trying to jump to head clear as you would. But when you're jumping, you kind of put those arms out to give you that added thrust as you jump. And it seems like he just mistimed it so much that his arms are out, and as he's jumping, the ball hits his hand.
He's just running 3 different directions, right? So he's basically dizzy. Have you seen those guys do the dizzy penalty? You know, and you put your head on the ball and you run around it 13 times and they try and take your penalty. And then like professional players like Daniel Sturridge cannot even hit the target with the dizziness. I think there's just a little bit of that going on. If you run in a big circle or like a Homer Simpson type thing, you're just like, you're uncoordinated and it's very hard to use the proper technique. And then your arms flail more than they normally would. I think that's how he ends up handballing.
Okay, I'll give you some credit there for that one, that maybe he was just so discombobulated, but I think if you look at this game and his set piece marking overall, you start to realize that maybe this is the area that he needs to work on. As he said, he has said his weakness is defensive and attacking headers, and that's something he needs to develop. And I think you saw that here, because even in the first couple minutes, Liverpool, I think it was like 2.5 minutes in, the third minute, Liverpool get a corner. Paul Pogba is marking Dejan Lovren and loses him completely. It gets turned out for another corner kick for Liverpool, I believe it was. But Paul Pogba has already lost Dejan Lovren by 6 yards, and they're standing inside the box. So it points to that I think maybe he's trying to be a little bit overly aggressive. When you see the second corner that Liverpool get, he is essentially like hugging Dejan Lovren as the ball comes in. That. And I think of really smart attackers, people who know how to win their set pieces, know how to use that to their advantage and know how to evade that type of defending.
Yeah, so Lovren essentially puts a wall of 4 people between himself and Pogba, right? It's Rojo is marking Klavan and Darmian is marking Firmino, and Lovren just puts that group of 4 players between himself and Pogba. That's how he gets away from him. It's very, very clever from Lovren, who I feel like is a kind of an old pro at this game, right? This game of winning headers on corners.
And I think it was the worst thing that could have happened both to Manchester United and Paul Pogba, because number one, obviously it leads to a penalty, and that's not great. But I think it also leads to Paul Pogba really being G'd up for this game for a number of reasons. Those range from marketing, in that there's a whole bunch of branding stuff that came out about Paul Pogba's new emoji. He has a Paul Pogba specific emoji now, and he did all this stuff for it. That's why his hair looked the way it did. So I think this was supposed to be his kind of coming out party. There's the fact that I think the last time he played Liverpool with Manchester United, or the last time, like when he was before he moved to Juventus, he got a red card for simulation in that game. So there's kind of a history of poor performances that I think, and then the 0-0 draw was pretty dull. So I think there's a history of him trying, or like basically Liverpool being a tough game for him. And so when this happened,
because he's kind of overexcited about it because he spent so much time as a young guy at Manchester United, right? I think he wants to win the derby, basically.
Yeah, I think he does. I think it means a lot to him, and I think that's where you get into that, like Francesco Totti, Daniele De Rossi, Steven Gerrard. Sometimes when you have too much emotionally invested in a game, it can be a problem, and I think that kind of happened here because, by all accounts, it was his worst performance with Manchester United. I didn't think he was atrocious, but I certainly didn't think he was the game changer that maybe we expected him to be in this game, and I think he definitely struggled at times and maybe tried to do too much at other times.
It's an interesting thing, right? Because a lot of people talk about how derbies are all about passion and who wants it more and all that. And I think Pogba's performance is kind of evidence that that is nonsense.
Yeah.
And sometimes the thing that gets a result in the derby is the pragmatic approach. And that is what Jose Mourinho did.
Absolutely. And I want to say really quickly, I know I've seen so much stuff about, I guess after the game, Jurgen Klopp said, they play long ball, we never will play that way. That like we play good, beautiful soccer, they don't, essentially. And people have made a lot of this because Liverpool played more long balls on the day. They played more long balls overall in the season, according to some statistics that I've seen. But I think what he is actually implying is in reference to Marouane Fellaini coming on. Because when Fellaini comes on, United do what you expect them to do when Marouane Fellaini comes on as an attacking option, which is hoof balls up to him and hope that something can happen. So I think I just want to add that Jurgen Klopp, I think that's what he's referring to when he says that, like, we executed our game plan and were able to get a goal off of it and we're able to kind of hunker down. They got their goal, according to Jurgen Klopp, from playing long and being kind of pragmatic, practical, but maybe not executing the game plan that they set out with.
Yeah, he's essentially saying that we wouldn't resort to just doing Fellaini up top, bang long balls to him for 15 minutes. Right. But you can't argue with what happened, right?
No.
So formerly it was Zlatan on his own, then Rooney was in behind him. For the last 15 minutes, it was Zlatan and Fellaini with Rooney behind. And I think who was sacrificed? Darmian was sacrificed, right? And didn't Mkhitaryan ended up playing
left back?
Graham Lasso called it as a loose left back, which I think is a wonderful, perfect term for what a player is asked to do in that sort of desperate last 10 minutes. It's like sort of cover left back if needed, but also be the left winger. And also we're not set up to play wing backs, but you're going to do it anyway because we're desperate and we're trying something. And you can't argue with the final goal comes from that Rooney, really nice chip Rooney cross, a Fellaini header onto the metalwork, I'm going to call it, because those things are not made of wood. And then the second little chip for Valencia to Zlatan to score a very composed, calmly taken header. Again, evidence that cooler heads sometimes succeed in derbies than passionate heads.
Yeah, as my Liverpool supporting friend Trey put it, he put that header in like the only possible spot where it could have gone in that wasn't completely covered by Liverpool. And that's kind of what Zlatan does. It is also worth noting, before Liverpool fans break things and scream at us and write angry emails, that yes, Antonio Valencia in the build-up to this goal was offside. I think he's the one who plays the initial ball in that eventually falls to Rooney, who then plays it back in, and it eventually falls to Valencia. He's definitely
Nicholas Otamendi was keeping him onside.
So you're saying he was? You're saying he was?
Okay. I'm joking.
Oh, sorry. Right, we switched games. Good job, Darrow. You threw me for a second. And as a Man United fan, I was looking for. Oh, he was onside. Okay, never mind. No credit then. But no, you're right. Yeah. So I mean, I think there is that argument to be made for sure that it was a pretty tight call.
Yeah. No. I think that too. Looking at it, it is very tight. But yes.
But yeah, I think he's offside.
In terms of praise, though, I do love that Zlatan very quickly recognises that he's not getting to that rebound from Fellaini's header, but he's immediately gesturing for exactly what he wants Valencia to do.
Yeah, and I mean that's typical Zlatan in that, you know, he's not afraid to tell people what he wants, but it's also typical Antonio Valencia, who I'm wondering, is he the fittest player in the Premier League? Do you think?
Oh, I'd like to see him and Lallana on a long distance sprint.
I don't think I want to see that because it will just make me feel out of shape. But yeah, the two of them, that's a good shot as well.
I want to hear about it, and I only want edited highlights.
I'll say this though. Actually, that comparison is a good kind of explanation of this game. Michael Cox wrote a really good piece for, I believe, The Guardian, kind of dissecting this game, and his point was that Adam Lallana early on, Liverpool came out in a 4-4-2 diamond, essentially, and that you have Adam Lallana tasked with essentially man-marking Michael Carrick so that Carrick never has time on the ball, because that's how Man United are really successful. Michael Carrick has time, he can pick out his passes, United win. When he doesn't have time, United struggle, and that's exactly what happened in that first half. But because of that diamond, and again, I'm paraphrasing Michael Cox here, essentially Liverpool have to run a whole lot. They have to shift the diamond from one side to the other. So as the game progresses, Adam Lallana gets tired, and then Antonio Valencia doesn't. Antonio Valencia continues to bomb up that right wing over and over and over again, and eventually is able to put that cross in for the winner. Or for the equalizer, excuse me.
So does that mean that Valencia may be the fitter player?
Or that he just knows how to save his strength for the very end. Or that he's not playing in central midfield for Liverpool is maybe another option there. Also, maybe worth mentioning.
I tell you, we have one more scouting report that comes from this game. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Charles McHugh was scouting Trent Alexander-Arnold, the 18-year-old right back for Liverpool. So Alexander-Arnold, hyphenated, was starting because, Charles says, a rib injury to Nathaniel Clyne pushed Trent into the starting 11 at right back, which was also his first ever league start. He lined up against Anthony Martial, struggled at times, but was good overall. Charles summarises that Trent went the full 90, survived the moments of terror caused by Martial, and was not at fault for the Man United equaliser. Onward and upward, exclamation mark.
Yeah, I was actually legitimately very excited to see Trent Alexander-Arnold, who only has Alexander on his jersey. That threw me for a second. I'm assuming it's because if
they don't have a font small enough, I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like, I assume when you're the youngster, they're like, okay, we'll put that on later on. Like, you get a limited number of characters to start. Let's see what you do before we start printing all these things. So it was a strong game from him. Do you have anything else to say about him before I ask you about a different player?
I do, actually. If you remember, you talked about how United conceded the corner that Liverpool won the penalty kick from. That all starts with Martial being forced backwards by Trent Alexander-Arnold. He puts him under so much pressure on the wing. That's why Martial plays that ball all the way back from the wing to Phil Jones, and Phil Jones is immediately under pressure from Firmino. Yeah. So TAA, as I like to call him, is really partly takes credit. It's not an MLS assist. It's maybe it's like 4 assists back, right? But his pressure on Martial, forcing him to play kind of a not smart ball to Jones under pressure from Firmino, is what wins that corner. So top work from Trent Alexander-Arnold. Also, there was another moment where he did cough up the ball to Martial, and if you watch, it's when the ball ends up going in the box, and I can't remember who the player is, almost gets on the end of it. TAA makes an absolutely gut-busting, I want to say 40-yard sprint to get there and put pressure. It may be Martial again, to put pressure and make that chance impossible. So even when he had little mistakes, he absolutely made up for them.
A gutbuster, you say?
I meant lung-buster. Gut-buster's when you eat too much, right? Looking at TAA, he definitely hasn't done that. It was a lung-busting run. It's a gut-busting breakfast. It's a lung-busting run.
I see. I like it. So then my other question for you was about Monsieur Wayne Rooney. That's right. I made him French. Okay. So he comes on at halftime for Michael Carrick, I think for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. And apparently made me so annoyed that I have to drop my pen to discuss it. So I was watching this with a few other people. I was still of the opinion that I wasn't so pumped to see Wayne Rooney. I don't necessarily think he did that much to enhance his reputation. Obviously, he has a strong reputation, but you know what I mean. Like he didn't really do much to put down the critics, but he didn't do a lot to build himself back up either. So I'm wondering what you thought of Wayne Rooney's overall performance.
I think you got to think he was involved in the goal, right? He, I think he actually fakes. It might be Alexander-Arnold. He fakes in one way, gets to the end line, and chips that ball kind of perfectly onto Fellaini's head. He also, I think he allowed Mourinho to change shape as well, right? Because when Rooney comes on, they go from that 4-1-4-1 kind of thing to more like a 4-4-1-1 with Rooney underneath Ibrahimovic. So, yeah, he didn't do anything to maybe convince Mourinho that that's the way forward, but he also didn't do himself any harm either. And I feel like that is Wayne Rooney's situation at Manchester United now. I don't think he's ever going to play so well that he's going to be guaranteed a starting spot, but I think he's always going to be an option to change the game, either late on or at halftime.
I think the biggest thing that I didn't like about the Wayne Rooney edition was the awareness, again, with as with Paul Pogba, the awareness of what this match would mean to him, not just because of the Liverpool, Everton, Man United connections there, but also just the fact that he is currently level with Bobby Charlton for all-time goals for Manchester United. And the idea of breaking that record against Liverpool had to be appealing to him. And it did seem like there were a few moments in there when he maybe could have passed, could have been a little bit smarter, but wanted that glory and wanted maybe an ill-timed shot, maybe tried to do a little bit too much at times, and that's where I was kind of concerned with him coming in, and that may also have colored my overall perception of his game.
Fair enough. All right. We have scouting reports to come later on the show. We have 4 young Americans to talk about, a little bit of MLS Super Draft, a little bit of US under-20s, all involved there. But first up, we have a sponsor for today's show, Taylor. Today's sponsor is SeatGeek. SeatGeek has made the ticket buying process easier than ever. SeatGeek also makes it easy to buy and sell tickets from your phone.
That is correct. They are the web's largest event ticket search engine, so you can download the app to search for events in your area or search specific shows, concerts, or sporting events that you're interested in attending. They will do all the price comparison for you, so you can get a good deal.
I've been looking, Taylor, in the St. Petersburg area just to see what's going on around here. And I found on the SeatGeek app a sold-out event that I could get tickets for to see Van Morrison. Van Morrison. Yep. He is playing tomorrow night, so that'll be Tuesday night, at the Ruth Eckerd Hall here in Florida.
You going?
Probably not, because I've got some other things lined up. But if I was going to, go, I'd be very excited. I'm a big Van Morrison fan. We've never talked about him. I don't know how you feel about him.
He's fine.
Really?
I haven't really listened to that much, if I'm being totally honest. It's mostly limited to my father playing it on repeat throughout my childhood.
So some things get played out when you're young, right? If your parents try and push it too hard. I was introduced
the Les Mis soundtrack comes to mind. That's another one that my brother hates that musical so much because for both of us it has this weird Pavlovian response basically it's like I hear Les Mis and I immediately think vacuum cleaning, because that was what came on at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays that meant it was time to clean the house.
On the upside, I feel like the message got through there, because I've never seen you steal bread.
That's true. I don't. Not even when my family is starving, because I don't want to have to haul ships for a living. Yeah.
So my wife introduced me to Van Morrison's music, especially the first two albums, and Into the Mystic, one of my favorite songs.
Alrighty. Well, since you probably aren't going to go see Van Morrison, I'm going to stick with that theme of events we aren't going to go see. I watched some playoff football this weekend. I have not watched much NFL action this season, but I did watch playoffs this weekend. Really enjoyed both the performances from both the Packers and the Falcons. So I looked for tickets to that playoff matchup, and there are tickets available. They are not cheap, but they are available.
Of course, I mean, playoff tickets are not cheap, but if you want to go, SeatGeek is the way to go.
There we go.
If you would like to use the SeatGeek app and get a $20 rebate off your first ticket purchase, here's what you do. You download the SeatGeek app. You go to the settings tab and you click add a promo code. You enter the promo code TSS, and then SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase.
All of those are accurate statements, Mr. Grove. So download the free SeatGeek app and enter the promo code TSS today.
And if you want to let us know on Twitter, would you rather see Van Morrison in concert or the NFL playoffs? I would love to know which is the more popular destination.
All right. I would put money on one thing, but who knows? Who knows for sure?
All right, Taylor.
Actually, I don't know. I don't know who with our demographics. I don't know which one we would get more of. I legitimately.
That's why
don't.
It's interesting.
It is.
That's why it's an interesting question.
It is, and it's also interesting to hear about the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, which we've already mentioned, and which we had many reports. We've got a few more to read through. Shall we get to it?
Oh, yeah, so we've got 4 more young Americans. TSS Scouting Network is how we support the show. We ask people to subscribe to Total Soccer Show. When they do, we assign you a young player to scout. I'm very aware of my inbox right now. We have a few people waiting for their scouting assignments. Those will happen this week, we promise.
Before we get to that, speaking of our inbox, we also had many other reports that we will get to as the week progresses, but we're sticking with Americans this week.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to start with Taylor Mukaria, scouting Jeremy Ebobisse, the 19-year-old forward/winger, now of Portland. Taylor says, I figured I would wait until the MLS Super Draft to announce Ebobisse had been taken number 1 overall by Minnesota United, but after months and months of mock drafts saying Minnesota would take Jeremy first, they instead drafted Abu Danladi. Apparently, even scoring in his only day at the MLS Combine wasn't enough for Minnesota to take Ebobisse first. In the end, he fell all the way to the number 4 pick for the Portland Timbers. As this is Taylor Mukaria talking, learn more about why he wasn't taken number 1 by Minnesota, I will let you guys know, but I figured you needed this information immediately. We did, Taylor. Thank you very, very much for that information.
So my guess, and from what I've read and heard, is that people say that Abu Danladi from UCLA has the biggest upside of any player available in the draft, but has sort of a questionable injury record. So it seems to me that Minnesota took the gamble on Abu Danladi and thought maybe we can get more out of this guy in the long run. But from what we've seen of Ebobisse, I feel like he might be a good fit to back up Fernando Adi at the Portland Timbers. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to back up Fernando Adi, or I think he can play out wide. We've seen him play on the wing. I think he played on the wing for Charleston briefly before getting moved up top when we saw him play. He's a very good player. I think he's strong, he's fast, he's very intelligent. I think he's going to be a very, very good player for Portland. Some Portland fans seem to have been annoyed by the pick. I think maybe because they wanted to focus on like defense and maybe like kind of strengthening in a few other positions, but I think they will not be displeased with the season that Ebobisse, I've decided, is going to have, because I do think he now has a chip on his shoulder.
The other guy taken in the draft that we have in the Scouting Network, we haven't received a report yet, Jackson Ewell, from Minnesota, interestingly, but he ended up being taken by San Jose, which I'm not sure what to make of that.
Nor am I. So maybe San Jose fans can let us know, or Jackson Ewell scouters can let us know.
Yeah,
or just scouts. That's the word.
I'm thinking of the way Tommy Thompson hasn't received many minutes over the years. I know that Jackson Ewell is not Tommy Thompson. He's maybe a more, I want to say, sensible player. Like creative, but in a sensible kind of way.
I feel like Tommy Thompson could murder a unicorn, and you would still be like, "Well, he deserves he deserves consideration." Let's be real. Like, you love using Tommy Thompson. I don't think that man can do anything wrong in your eyes.
To be fair, if I was I'm not a lawyer, but if I was defending Tommy Thompson in court, my number one line of defense would be, unicorns aren't real, right?
Hey, tell that to rhinoceroses, my friend. Up next, we've got a report from Michael Hartman. I'm moving us swiftly along. Scouting Josh Sargent. Josh, who doesn't turn 17 until next month. He is a striker for the U17 national team and now the U20 national team because he's been named in the U20 national team January camp ahead of World Cup qualifying. This will be Josh's debut for the U20s after his time in the residency program and the U17 national team. The first U20 World Cup game is February 18th against Panama. Ramos is bringing in 4 forwards to camp, so it's not clear if Josh will make that final cut, but it's a big step up regardless for a 16-year-old.
Do you know who the other forwards in camp are?
Tell me.
Jeremy Ebobisse
is
good. One of them.
I've heard he's good.
Yeah, and so Brandon Vasquez is one of them from Atlanta United. And the other forward, I won't mention his name just yet because we also have a scouting report about him. But it's worth saying, Josh Sargent, 16 years old in the U20 camp. Really, it's a reward or a recognition of his talents after all those goals in the Nike International friendlies.
Alrighty. Well, then let's get to that other player that I skipped in the list of scouting reports.
You sure did. Also in the U20 World Cup camp is Brooks Lennon. We got a scouting report from Cora Welsh scouting Brooks Lennon, the 19-year-old, I want to say winger/forward for Liverpool under-23s. Here's Cora's report. Lennon continues to contribute solid performances for the U23s, scored 2 goals in their most recent 4-1 friendly win against Barnet, though one was later credited as an own goal. He is without a clear path to the first team, however, which has generated news of possibly moving back to the US to play for Real Salt Lake. Cora says the move seems reasonable, as interpreted by my transfer rumor decoder ring. Lennon has ties to the team, having played in RSL's academy, but it's definitely not concrete, and there is no news specifying if the move would be a loan or a transfer. The Salt Lake City Tribune's Chris Camerani was only able to cite a non-specific league source and note that the RSL team spokesperson declined to comment on any potential move for Lennon.
Yeah. I think there's also been, since then, some discussions, but I think the valuations are far apart in terms of what Liverpool want versus what maybe RSL are willing to pay for that transfer.
I see.
Yeah. So, in the meantime,
worth noting, Brooks Lennon, now might be a time for him to get closer to the team, right? With Sadio Mane away on international duty, all that kind of stuff. But even recently, it seems like Ben Woodburn was closer to the team than Brooks Lennon, and Woodburn's a couple years younger. So that doesn't look like he'll be playing first team football anytime soon. So personally, I would love a loan to Real Salt Lake to get some minutes, but without losing that Liverpool sort of spot.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. But I don't want us to end on a bummer note for USMNT fans. So we will instead end with Danielle Gaither scouting DeSavio Payne, the 21-year-old left back in the Eredivisie. Things are looking up for young Mr. Payne. After healing from his unspecified wound and on a run with the U21s, he played his first match with Groningen senior team on Saturday. He played the full 90 and scored his first ever Eredivisie goal in a 4-0 rout of Heracles Almelo. Daryl, have you read the rest of this report yet?
I read it as you were reading it. I read ahead.
Because, most importantly, the groundskeeper at Heracles registered his displeasure at the team's performance at halftime by leaving some snow on the pitch in the shape of the male anatomy. And that's how I will put that.
Really?
Yep. And I clicked on the link you can find. I think What a Howler has it. Yep, that's exactly what that is.
Is he possibly going to get fired?
I mean, I have to believe yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's very... Like, he really did remove all of the snow except for one... Actually, it's 2 patches because, and I apologize, listeners, it's circumcised.
I'll tell you
that. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that he might get a pink slip this weekend.
Still, good news for DeSavio Payne. No matter what's on the field, DeSavio Payne's on the field.
Yeah, that's good, yeah. No firings for DeSavio Payne.
All right, thank you to Taylor, to Michael, to Cora, and to Danielle for the Scouting Reports. Again, if you'd like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, the ever-expanding Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, you can go to totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. If you'd like to support the show by buying a t-shirt or a scarf, you can do so at totalsoccershow.com/shop. All 3 products, there are 2 different t-shirts and 1 scarf, beautifully made by Who Are You Designs and Roughneck Scarves, respectively. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today, even though you're 850 miles away.
Right back at you, hermano, even though you are 11 days walking away from me.
I'll start now. I'll start heading back now. That's without stopping to sleep as well. So
okay, that makes more sense. I feel like 11 days is not that unreasonable for 850 miles, but when you add in the lack of sleep, okay, that changes things.
Obviously, we're even though I'm out of town, there'll be Total Soccer shows all week this week. We've got some interviews planned, but they're kind of they're not 100% nailed down yet, so don't quite want to reveal who they will be. We'll also maybe answer some listener questions, talk some more about what's happening at January camp with the US men's national team. All that to come on the Total Soccer Show this week.
That sounds good to me. But first, I have to add, can I just say the most ridiculous part of Forrest Gump is when he just runs back and forth across the country? Speaking of this 11-day walk. Because there's no way that happens, right? He starves to death, or runs out of water, or dies of dehydration, or some sort of illness.
Yeah.
And at the very least, runs himself out of shoes. Come on now. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. There's a lot in Forrest Gump that is kind of far-fetched, right?
That might be the most far-fetched.
Every historical event.
You also just can't be like a homeless guy running across the country and suddenly have a bunch of people running behind you. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous.
Open your heart, Taylor. Open your heart.
No.
All right, listeners, thank you for listening. We will talk to you again tomorrow.